Hi, this is going to be the very first attempt at trying to do some tutorials for MvvmCross. I'm just going to try and spend a little time each day to explain some functionality, some features. So I'm calling this, instead of doing it 31 days or something, I'm just doing it N+1 days of MvvmCross, and I'm starting at n=0. So this is the first day. So just to start, I'll just try and run through the sort of demo I gave at Evolve recently. And to do that, what I did was I created a new project, and I went to Windows, and I called it a Portable Class Library project. And what I did was I called it something like, this is a first demo, first demo, and I called it, because it's the core project I'm going to build, so it's the PCL that's going to contain the application and the view models. I called it first demo as a solution, and first demo.core as the project. So I do that, and then I hit OK, and then Windows will ask me what sort of platforms I want to support, and I will say I want to support Mono for Android, Mono Touch, and Windows Phone Mango and Higher. So that's that, then choosing Mango and Higher. You can see the options, and that should give me it should go off and generate what I need. So hopefully it goes off. And basically, it's just going to generate an empty class library. So if we look over at what it generates, then you can see, there's nothing very exciting in firstdemo.core. And indeed, there is an empty class. I'm going to get rid of that. And then we get a NuGet. And this is the 2.5 beta NuGet I'm now running. And what we do is we choose to go to MvvmCross in the search results, and hopefully I've got a network. And you'll see that the top hit is the starter pack. So you choose the starter pack, and that will go off and it will download the contents. 304 is the number I've just uploaded today. And what's in the starter pack is this to-do folder. Let me just zoom in again for you. There's a to-do folder. We don't need that because I know what I'm doing. There's a view models folder and there's an app. So let's just delete the to-do. You can read through that if you want to another time. You can also see that we've actually added in 3 references as part of that PCL NuGet. And then we've got app and we've got view models. So first of all, you'll notice that we don't have any script to sort out the namespace, so we have to do that ourselves. But what you'll see is we've got some simple IOC set up for ending the service to set up singletons, and we've got something that says where the application will start, and it will start with the first view model. So let's go look at our first view model as well, and you can see here, we've got a very empty view model with just a single property in it called hello. So what we'll do is we'll put a bit more sensible property. So I've got my own snippet set up for properties. You can set them up yourself very easily as well. But you can see that every property that I set, will just have the same format of having a private member variable and a public property to match that. And the public property will call raise property change from expired. So let's just set up this first view model as having a first name property, and that's our first thing. And let's also give it last name property. So underscore last name, and then let's set up a computed value for the 2. So let's just set up a public string full name. And what this will do is when it gets returned, it will return string.format bracket 0 brackets 1, and we'll set it up as having underscore first name underscore last name. And so that's just a get property. And what we want to do is whenever we change the first name or the last name, we also want to fire raise property changed on full name too. So we'll just add that in. So hopefully most of you who read this will already be familiar a little with MVVM, and so this won't look too foreign to you as code. But as you can see, all we've got is a first name and a last name and a full name, and that's how we're going to build things together. And that's our first view model. So we should be able to build this guy. We go to build, and then what we should be able to do is add a client. So I'll start with a Windows Store client. So if we just go to Windows Store, we choose blank app. And here we can choose first demo.store. Goes off and creates an app for us. And the things we want to do, first of all, we want to add a reference to our core project. So go to the solution, add the reference. Then we'd like to get rid of main page, because that's just not in our world at all. We want to use views, not these pages. Then we're going to go to NuGet again. And what we're going to do in NuGet is we're going to say, can I get MvvmCross? So we get MvvmCross, and again, all we want is the hot Juno starter pack, so we do that. And what again that will have done, let's just zoom in a little for you, is you will see that first of all we've included a few references in the store project as a result. Secondly, we've got a to-do folder with a little to-do thing in it. And thirdly, we've got a new file called setup.cs. So let's just take a look at the to-do for this, because it is actually quite useful. So the to-dos are saying, add a reference to your core PCL project. We've done that. Second one is to create a setup. And in here, you'll see again that we've got a little problem with namespacing, so we do that. And we've got a little problem with namespacing. So the setup file is the thing that will be called in the UI project when your application boots. And you can see all it is really a way of getting hold of the application. Under the covers, it'll do a lot more. And hopefully in some of the future N+1 days, we'll cover some of that. So let's go back to the to-do. Right, so what else it says is there's a block of code that needs to go in on launched. And actually it's just this block here that really needs to change. So I'll just show you in app.xaml.cs, which is the Windows generated file and contains all this gunk. You can see here where it tells you to navigate to the mainframe. That's what we're going to replace with this guy. And just to show you what it is, this guy is actually, all it's doing is creating a setup object, calling initialize, and then it's calling start on the app start. Now the app start is actually what was initialized in our core project, and that's all there is to it to getting that set up. Okay, so back into our to-dos. Right, so the final thing we need to do is add a views folder and add some views to there. So let's just do that. Let's add a new folder called views. And in there, let's add a first view. Now it's important this is called first view because our view model was called first view model, and we actually do naming conventions to match these guys together. So first view is what it's called, and we're going to use the basic page template. Hope you can see that, basic page and first view. So we'll hit OK, and what it says is Visual Studio asks us whether or not we want to add these missing common namespace files, and the answer is yes, we do. And then back in our to-do, you'll see that it tells us to do some things with these. So it tells us to change the inheritance to MVX store page, and to remove the on-navigated to and on-navigated from handles. So let's just go there. It says the layout aware page. Now we find this guy, and you can see currently here, layout aware page inherits from page, which is kind of a Windows thing. So instead of that, we'd like to inherit from MVX store page. Done. And then the next thing it said was find on-navigated to. So that's hidden in this process lifetime management. And what it told us to do was to find on-navigated to and find on-navigated from, and just to bin them. So that's what we've done, we just removed them. Yeah. And at that stage, we should be able to go back to first view, and you can see, it's just there, it's got some gunk in it being generated. But what we'd like to do is the final thing that's in our to-do, which is to add some content for our XAML. So let's just add that content. And I'm not going to use the designer because it doesn't like me. So what I'll do is I will just minimize that. And what we're going to do is here, we're going to add some content. So let's do a stack panel. And that's going to go in grid.row equals 1, which just means it's going to go in the right place in the page for us. And inside the stack panel, we'd like to have two editable areas. So we're going to have a text box, which is going to be the first one for the first name. So the text of this, we're going to bind using the WPF and XAML and Silverlight data binding thing. So we're going to bind it to first name on our view model, and we're going to bind it two-way. So mode equals two-way. And then let's just make it a bit bigger, shall we? So let's have a font size, and let's make that to 64, which is going to be pretty big. And then we'd like to have another one, which is going to be our second name. Is it last name we call that? and that's going to have font size that as well. And then we'd like to just have a display. So this one will be a text block, and this is going to be the full name, and this is obviously only going to be one way. So that's it, that's all of our binding and all of our view. So now we should be able to go back to here and should be able to build store, unless I've made a mistake. So we built store, and can we actually also run it, and hopefully you'll be able to see it on screen as well. So it goes off and it runs up, and we have my application. There's nothing in these two text boxes at the moment. So if we write our first name as Stuart, and then tab away, you can see the binding has kicked in, and we are at our second name as Lodge. You can see it kicks in. Now what you'll notice is that as you update these things, so if instead of me it's my dad, then it doesn't update the text block automatically, but it does when you tab away or click away. So that's our first application up and running with a bit of data binding. Okay, so that is Windows Store. We could also do the same thing for Windows Phone, but let's go across to one of the Xamarin platforms because that's a bit more exciting as the next demo. So let's go across to Xamarin and let's choose a Android application. And this one we will call first demo.droid. These different targets you can go for, whether you want to go for honeycomb or ice cream sandwich, really are just like saying, do I want to go for Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 7.5, or Windows 8? It's just different levels of APIs that are available. And we're just choosing Android application, which can go all the way back to 1.6 if we want to. 2.3 is pretty much normal now. Some people go back to 2.2, and increasingly some people are starting at 4, which is ice cream sandwich. Don't need to worry about that for now. This is just about data binding, and it works all the way back to 1.6 if we want. So let's hit OK on first demo.droid. And it goes off and it generates this platform for us. And you can see that it's a normal template here, including an activity 1. We'll get rid of activity 1 because we don't need the default activity. And we'll also get rid of the layout that came with it, which is name.edxl. So you can see we've now got an empty project. And what we want to do is, just as we did with the store, we'd like to add a reference to the core project, so to the PCL. So we do that and hit OK. And you can see at this stage, it's built it's just included. And we should be able to build this, but it might complain because we haven't got a starter activity or anything like that. So let's now take a look at what we need else to do. And what we really want to do is we want to add MvvmCross to it. So again, we go back to our to NuGet and we say please install the starter pack. And what you'll see happens is it goes off and it installs into references quite a few different assemblies that need to be brought in, including binding assemblies, which are used for data binding in the XML. And again, you'll see that what it does is it includes a to-do folder with a to-do list in it. And again, it includes a setup, and this time it includes a first view. So let's just take a look at first things first of this guy. So what it's telling us to do is to add a reference to our core PCL project. We've done that. And it says create the setup. So let's take a look at setup again. And just as before, there's not much in here. There is a namespace to sort out for this demo. And apart from that, what's in here is just that we kind of have, a setup space that creates the app. You can do a lot more in setup. Again, we'll come across that later, but now that's all you need to see. So we can save that and close it. There's also a splash screen here. Now, the splash screen is there just for our startup. And it just gives us something to look at when we're starting. And you can see, we'll probably call this a first demo app. It does have the main launcher equals true, so that just means that when the app starts, we'll go straight to this page. That's all there is to this graph. So we can close that as well. And then we've got our first view. So our first view again has a problem with namespace, so we fix that. And that's it. It's got a first view for first model, and then it says everything else is going to go, and this is what this line here means. Everything else is going to be done by XML, which is resource.layout.first view. So having done that, let's just take a look at the layout. And in the layout over here, hopefully you can see we've got a first view and we've got a splash screen. So let's start with splash screen. Splash screen's got very little in it, so we don't mind too much. First view has got this in it. And what we can see in here is that we've got a local namespace as well as an Android namespace. So namespaces are just like they are in XAML, really. They're just imports of things into your XML. So what we need to do first of all is get rid of this your manifest namespace, which must have more than one path. And for this, what we'll do is it's called firstdemo.droid. So we'll do that. You couldn't actually launch onto the Google Play Market space with this because it doesn't like these capital letters, but you can sort that out later. For demo right now, it's fine. And then what we've got down below is we've got a text view, which currently is bound to hello. So that's what this local MVX bind means. It means bind the text property of my text view to the view model property hello. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to replace that with two edit texts and a text view. So let's just do that. So what we'll do here is have an edit text, which is like a text block, in a text box, in WPF. So the first one we're going to add is this edit text, and this is going to be first name. And the second one we're going to have is an edit text, which is going to be last name. And the final one is going to be a text view, which is full name. So what we should now be able to do, as long as I haven't messed up, is we should be able to build this. And hopefully that's built. That's build succeeded. And then we should be able to run it. So if we do debug start new, it'll ask us where we want to do it. So we're going to start an emulator. And this is the Intel emulator I'm going to run, and it's considerably faster than running the non-Intel emulator, so it's well worth it. But it does fight with the Windows Phone 8 Hyper-V emulator, so it's not all upsides, unfortunately. So hopefully the Intel emulator is starting. Everybody breathe a sigh of relief when it starts. Just thinking about it at least. Right, so our emulator is up and running, and we can open it using that. And then what we should be able to do is back here, if it's lucky. Okay, so it hasn't picked up the change, so I'm just going to cancel that. And I'll run again, and this time it will have noticed that there is an emulator running, so that's just how it goes. So there's our emulator in the list. It's telling you it's the one you started. And we will hit OK. What we should see is that it will deploy to the emulator. Oh, it's installing a runtime, sorry. Not quite up to date. Shouldn't take very long at all. It says deploy failed. I don't believe it. It's just one of the shared runtimes it's saying. Let me see if it comes across. Yeah, so it's installing some more frameworks. Hopefully they'll be across very soon. This isn't normal. It's just because I've just updated Android, Mono for Android on this computer just before I did the demo. Normally it will be lightning fast to kick into this. Famous last words. Okay, so finally it's copying the application across, synchronizing assemblies, it launches first demo, so it loads up. And what we should now be able to do is if we come to the first text box and we again type Stuart, then what you should see is that the data binding works exactly as you expected and that you get these things printed out. So that's that, and again if I wanted to change it to my dad, then it would be easy enough to change it. And so there we have a data-bound UI working within Android. So that's two platforms up and running. Let's see how many more we can add. Next up, let's go back to Windows Land and add a Windows Phone project. So for this, I'll choose 7 just so I can get the emulator running at the same time as the Android one. So let's do first demo.phone. Again, we're not doing anything complicated there. And we choose that, and we're going to choose Mango 7.1. And you can see it comes up as a project with a main page. And we'll delete main page because we don't want main page. And what we'll then do is we'll add a reference, again from the phone project, within the solution to the core project. So that's just adding in a reference to our app, as it were. And then we'll go to NuGet, and we will add a reference to the Hot Tuner starter pack. So you can see we've added that in, and again we've got a to-do folder, and we'll look at the to-do folder again to find out what we're supposed to do. So the to-do folder is saying add a reference to your core project. We've done that. It's saying take a look at setup, make sure it's okay. So again, what we have to do is correct the namespace, first demo and first demo. And again, all this setup file is doing the UI part of the application boot. So all it's doing is creating the core app. And then what we need to do according to this is there is a couple of bits, just a small thing to change within the app.xaml. So the first thing is we need to create a setup. So we'll do that. So we do the creation of the setup at the very end of the constructor for the app. So there it is. And then we do this application launching just to intercept the navigation and decide what we're going to navigate to. So we take a look at this and we put that in. So there's not much going on here really other than we saw already in Windows Store in terms of calling start on an app start object. So that's that. That's done. So we should again be able to build at that stage. And then back in the project, in the to-do file, it's saying add a views folder, and it's telling you to be very careful to make sure you do call it views. And that's because we use some hard-coded strings to views. It's not hard-coded as in can't be changed, but that's what the default is. And then what we would like to do is we would like to create a view. So what we'll do is we create a page. Again, it's important that this is called first view because it's going to match the first view model. So we call it first view. And then this first view, as you can see, by default inherits from phone application page. And if you take a look at the CS, again, you can see it inherits from phone application page. And what we need instead of that is we need to inherit from our special MVX page. So we need to inherit from MVX phone page. So we do that. And so we need to do that in both the XAML and the CS. So let's get hold of it here. And we'll delete it. And we'll do MVX phone page. The prompt that you can see on the screen of, change it to this, that comes from ReSharper. And it really is very useful because it means all I have to do is hit Alt Enter and it imports that type for me, so I don't have to do anything else. And then once we've done that, all we need to do is to put in the binding. So what I'll do again is I'll just use this main area and the stack panel. And in the stack panel, I'll put a text block, and the text for this is going to be bound to first name. And underneath that, I'll do a second one, and this is going to be bound to last name. And underneath that, I will do a text box. Oops, I got these the wrong way around. So this should be a text box, the first one, and for your first name and your last name. It's only this other one that should be a text block. So that's what the UI should be. Apologies for getting that wrong. And then what we need to do is we need to run this up. So what I'm going to do is go to Properties, and just because I want to use the 7.1, the Mango debugger, I'll choose it here. And then I should be able to run it up. So debug, start new instance. And again, this will take slightly longer than it would have done if I hadn't been starting from cold. But we're going to boot the Windows Phone emulator. And you can see it's booting, it's working out its own ARM boot process. And hopefully when it boots up, it will start the app and show firstview.xaml. Almost there. I will try and get this better set up in future demos. Right, so our app's now launching. And what we have is this page, and you can see we've got these two text boxes. And if I type here my name, oops, if I can type my name, then when I tab away, hopefully, or if I got a typo, if I got a bug, then we didn't see data binding. So let me just see what I've done wrong. Okay, so what I've done wrong is I forgot when I was writing my XAML, so let me exit. I forgot what I had to include in XAML all the time. Which is when you're binding these things, you do need to put mode equal two-way. And that's just because that's the convention within Windows. Within MvvmCross on Droid, we don't need that two-way, and that's probably why I forgot it. But in Windows, Microsoft code going back a long time, they decided to make it two-way, one-way by default. And so now, hopefully, if I do this, then we should see, when I tab away, we get, first name, last name displayed. And if I go back and I change it to dad, and hopefully you will see that we have data binding. So that's view model set up in 3 platforms now. So we've got one more platform to go. Within this demo, we can do WPF as well, but that's very similar to store and phone. So let's just do another one. And this one is going to be add a new project. And this new project is going to be the iOS one. So what we'll just choose an iPhone project. We'll choose Hello World type. And we'll do first, get out of the way, first demo.touch. And so that's going to be the name of our Hello World project. And we do OK. And Visual Studio will go off and it will generate this for us. Right, so what we should now have is we've got this kind of default template here. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to add a reference, just as we've done before, to the core project. OK. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like to manage NuGet packages and add a reference, just as we've done before, to MvvmCross. And again, just as before, we'll just choose this hot tuner starts back. And it goes off and it downloads things. So what that's done is it's included a few binding and other MVVM packages for us, with assemblies for us within Touch. It's included a to-do folder, and it's included setup again for us. So let's just go through the to-do. And you can see here, hopefully, first thing we have to do is add a reference to the core PCL project. That's done. Second thing is to create the setup.cs, so let's take a look at that. And again, it's a very similar project, and it's a very similar set of fixes we have to do. Just do first demo.touch and first demo. So it's just those, but apart from that, it's a very similar type of file, so we'll get rid of that one. And back in here, it says what we have to do is modify app delegate to create the new setup and to call app start. So we've actually got a template provided for us. And so what we'll do is we'll just use that template. So let's just take it, and the template's here, and do that. And the only things we really need to do are to, again, correct namespace. So just to show you what a little bit of that content in the template is, it's only got finish launching, so it's only got the very last step in the boot of the iPhone app. And in finish launching, what it does is it creates a new presenter. Now, presenter is just kind of a region manager, if you like, from Prism or something like that. It just tells the UI how to show things. And all this one does is just displays everything whole window. So there's a window at the top here. And then we call setup, passing in the presenter. Then we call setup.initialize. And then we have this bit of code that's quite familiar from Windows Store and from Windows Phone, which just looks for the app start, which is in our core project, and calls start on. And that's it. That's all of the specialization that's on there. So again, we should be able to build this at this stage. So it builds, no problems with that. But back in the setup, we also then need to do an add views folder and to do some interesting code within the views. So let's do that. Let's add a new folder called views. And within views, let's add a first view, and it's going to be called first view. So let's just add that as a iOS, as a UI view controller. It's going to be called first view. And you can see that it creates a universal view for us as a background, and we'll just make that white so it's not quite so ugly. And then underneath what it does is it's got a first view, which is UI view controller, and then it's got a couple of empty methods. So we'll just tidy this up a little bit, just removing the memory warning method. And then we'll take a look at UI view controller. All we need to do with this is we need to replace it with an MVX view controller. So we do that. And then what we need to do is here where it says perform any additional setup, we're actually going to create the UI itself. So what I've got, I can't remember what my own short tab before it is. Okay, I can't remember how to do this by my snippets, so I'm going to create one from scratch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new label. New text edit. So new text edit. New, and this is going to be for first name, so I'll call it first. And this is going to be a UI text field. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this manually on the screen. So we're going to pass it a new rectangle F. And this is going to be 0 and 0 for left and top. And then it's going to be the whole screen width, which is 320. And then we'll just give it a reasonable height, which is sort of 40. Yeah, and so that creates our new text field. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that to our view. So we're just going to call add text edit first. And then we need to create a second one of those. So let's just give ourselves some space and add a second one. So this one is going to be just a little bit further down the screen. So all we do is here we say, right, well, this one can start at 50 on the screen. And then finally, we'd like to create a label. So this is going to be a label full. And this is going to be a UI label rather than a UI text field. And again, it's just going to be a bit further down the screen. So hopefully you can follow what it does. Hopefully you can see all it's doing is creating a first text box, a second text box, and thirdly it's creating a label. And then it's positioning those on the screen using absolute coordinates. And then what we do is we want to create bindings for these things. So what we do is we do this dot create binding set. And it's a binding set, which is just going to be a set. And it's create binding set that's going to go from a first view, model to a first view. So hopefully we can just do this. And we'll use resharper just to resolve those. And now what we can do is within the set we can get bindings. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bind the text edit first, and it will just take its default property, which is text. And we're going to bind that to, and so this is going to be the property that's on the view model. So we're going to bind it to the view model dot first name. Yeah, and hopefully you can see that. Hopefully you can see all it's doing is saying, I'd like to bind my text edit first, and really there's a hidden one here for text. That's not needed because everybody knows that if you're using a text edit, then you're almost certainly targeting the text as the default thing. We do that, and then we will also add into the same set a binding for text edit second. And text edit second is going to go to the last thing. And then finally we'd like to bind the label full, and we'd like to bind that to full name. Now this won't feel as familiar to you Windows devs if you are a Windows dev as it did in AXML, but you get used to it very quickly. And if you're also working in Xamarin's New Designer on the Mac, or you're working in the interface builder, then there are ways to help. The UI designer helps a lot with this. And the final thing we do is we call set apply, and that should set up all our bindings for us. So again, we should be able to build this. Let's see if we can just build. And then what we should be able to do, although it may take just a little bit more setup, is we should be able to set up and run this across on our Mac. So to do this, I'm going to just disappear for a moment and set up Team Project. So over on the Mac, I'm going to run Team Project. Team Viewer, sorry. And then what I can do here is I can run Team Viewer as well. So within Team Viewer, I should be able to enter my partner ID or remote control. And assuming that everything is working, it'll ask me for a password. And this time around, my password is... So I should be able to log on. Oops, got it wrong. Let's try that again. Right, so now I've got my Mac desktop and it's visible to you. So now what I should be able to do, as long as I've got a good network, is I should be able here to actually run this on the Mac. So if I debug start new. Right, so what I've got to do, sorry, first of all, is I've got to set this guy as a starter project. And then once I've done that, I should also be able to set this as iPhone Simulator. And now hopefully I should actually be able to run this on the Mac. So off it goes and it tries to run it. So if we go over to here now, onto our team viewer, I'm just evaluating this at the moment, see whether it works, whether I have to buy a new Mac. But what hopefully I should be able to do, device not found. Let me try again. What have I done? Debug, stop debugging. What you normally should be able to do, so it's got an iPhone 6.1. Let me see, because I'm currently running the Retina one, so let me try that. And what I should hopefully be able to do is debug start new. See if this is going to start for me, or if I'm going to need to pause it. So it claims first demo, it's saying build server failed to debug. Open the summary. Yeah, okay, that doesn't tell me very much. Okay, so when this works, it's very beautiful, and when it doesn't, it's very annoying. Let me just see. Yeah, it's just not deploying at the moment. Ah, okay, so this is another step that I've missed, and this is something you always have to remember. If you go to the properties for this guy, and you have to do this with every new project, then you need an application name. So this application name is first demo. And so you have to type first demo here. Let me just stop that because that's also annoying. Get rid of the P list. Right, so you have to go here and you have to type first demo. You have to give it an identifier. So this is going to be com.serious, which is my company name, .first demo. And you have to give it a version, which is 1. And without those things, it will not run. However, it doesn't give you a very good reason why it doesn't run. So let's stop this current run attempt. And let's go again. And this time, hopefully, over on TeamViewer. It's not TeamViewer's fault at the moment, so I won't hold it against it. Hopefully this time it should deploy. And hopefully this time it will run. Is there anything else I've forgotten? Oh, this doesn't like me at all today. Oh, well, it's running over here this time, but it's not running through the debugger. So let's try it one last time. Debug stop debugging. Let's go debug start. This isn't anything to do with MvvmCross in particular, but it does seem to be that I may have upset my build server a little. Right, so we're running, and this time we may actually have connected, but it doesn't seem to be doing very well. Let's see if we... Okay, so we do actually have some text here, it just is invisible. So if we actually start typing Stuart, then hopefully you can see that we do have a data-bound UI. Yeah, sorry about those setup issues, but that's it. And if I go back and I change it again to my dad's name, then you will see that we have, within half an hour or so, we've created the same data-bound UI with 2 editable fields and 1 display field from the same portable class library. And we have done that across 3 platforms. So there you go, that's up and running and did work. Sorry about those little teething problems, I must remember those for demo. But that's it, that's our basic setup. So what we've got here, just to show you again, is we have got a firstdemo.core, which is our portable class library. We've got a firstdemo.droid, which contains an AXML file with data binding in it. We've got a firstdemo.phone, which contains a XAML file with data binding in it. We've got a firstdemo.windowsstore, which contains a XAML file with data binding in it. And we've got a firstdemo.touch, which contained kind of more of a code-based binding, but still had, working data binding for that. And so that's the end of the first N+1 for MvvmCross. I hope I didn't mess up too much on demos, and I hope that gives you some idea of, what we try and do every day. And yeah, I hope that's good for you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see how that goes. Thanks a lot. I'll put the code somewhere on GitHub or something as well, just so people can get hold of it. Okay.